Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to our channel. You are invincible. I'm really thrilled for today's interview. As you have noticed, we have been having magnanimous personalities to speak to, and today is no different. She is an enigma. What must I say about her? I shall tell more about her right now with you. She is Dr. Rainbow Moon, a PhD. Rainbow is a metaphysical coach guiding individuals to their limitless, beautiful, fractal reality, available in today's time. Her goal is to open individuals to being their postmodern self, an open system dependent on context, always in a state of becoming, actively integrating new information and exchanging that information with the changing environment. From a myriad of names, she is referred to as Earth Mama, emotional healer, fashion maven, an astrologer, an urban neo shaman, an anthropologist, and a wisdom keeper. She has had a lot of accomplishments. A few I'd like to share over here. She has been an urban shaman from 1986, utilizing rituals in nature, meditation based on quantum physics, and hypnosis to aid individuals through the maze of their emotional manipulation and ill gotten mental beliefs. After a brief modeling career in LA, Rainbow worked in the model agencies in KCMO, helping insecure women and men. She worked as a volunteer with the Truman Medical Center's Mental Health Division. She was chair of the first community speakers community, where she was introduced to ACEs, the collective and communal traumas. She designed the wisdom keys for evolving deliberately, specifically for adult survivors of adverse childhood experiences, which is ACEs. She organized workshops for the Forgiveness Project, healing 500 years of karmic trauma. So, without further delay, I'd like to invite our enigma tonight, Rainbow Moon.
Thank you, Abhishek. That was quite amazing. Thank
Namaste.
you.
Namaste, Rainbow.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Oh my.
It's so good to have you with us. Thank you so much for giving your time.
I'm honored. I mean, this is an opportunity for me to be seen in my favorite country on the whole planet, in India. I am honored. So, and to be called an enigma. Okay, then.
Absolutely. You are. Absolutely. And you're looking gorgeous in the yellow salwar kameez, a suit which you're wearing. Seriously,
Thank
you're
you.
looking
Well,
like an
it's
enigma
in honor
yourself.
of the full moon, too, you know. We're having a full moon, and I'm sort of in that energy. So, yes.
Wow. So enigma is denoting you. Absolutely.
All right. So, what are we doing
Wonderful.
today? This is exciting. What are we going to do?
So I'm just going to ask a few questions and I just want to understand and I'm actually intrigued with your journey. I want to know more about you. I want to know how you have faced so many things. It's just beautiful. I know a bit about you, but I want to know from the horse's mouth. So
All
if
right.
you shall allow, I may start asking you questions.
Very good. Very good. That's
Fantastic. So the first question, it's like a given. When I got to know about you, that was the first question that came to my mind. Your name, Rainbow, is
okay.
is very interesting. So was it given to you at birth, or did you acquire it when you first connected to Mother Earth?
It was not given at birth. My family is not happy. That didn't matter much because it's actually the name that was given to me when I went on Vision Quest so that I could begin downloading the information I would need to be an urban shaman. I had studied everything I could. My grandmother had prepared me to some degree. You know, when Africans were brought over to America, many of them maintained their connection with nature because they were forced to be in nature. And so there were healing techniques and there were psychological techniques and there were massage techniques that my grandmother taught me. And I began incorporating those with the Native American teachings because my grandmother was half Cherokee. So I was looking at African teachings and Native American teachings and absorbing everything I could. And I knew that the final part was literally to go on a vision quest and wait for the divine to tell me where I was to be, what I was supposed to do. And so when I went on vision, I fasted for 21 days and I prepared myself completely. And I actually made 9 shields, the first 4 to the 4 directions, and then the others. So all of the universe was covered. They were, I still have them. They're very old now, but this was in 1986. And so it was for the harmonic convergence. That was part of it as well. And so I went to Florida for 2 weeks to go ahead and feel and experience the initiation. And Abhishek, it was so amazing. I was in a forest meditating. It was daylight, okay, when I went in. During the meditation, I have clear memory of that suddenly there was this bright light coming at me. And I'm deep dark. I had no idea. So I brought myself back into my body. I didn't go out there with anybody. We're in a national forest. Suddenly it occurred to me, get back to your body. I got to my body. I opened my eyes. And there was this full moon with a crescent rainbow coming down to touch the earth. And I heard in my head, this is your new name, Rainbow Moon. Well, that was a bit jarring. And
I'm sure.
When the voice, and here's the thing, this came from a being that I could see in front of me, and it was an elephant. I'm sorry. Elephants were not in African traditions that I studied. Elephants were not in the Native American. An elephant, I didn't know what to do. And I'm staring at this elephant and she's glorious. She was huge and shiny, just brilliant light. And when she said, and moon has 3 O's symbolizing the triple goddess. I was stunned. I was paralyzed. I just sat there. I was staring and my brain kicked in with, how is there a rainbow? It's dark out here. It's nighttime. That's a full moon. How is there a rainbow? I later found out Florida often will have midnight full moon rainbows. I had never heard of such a thing. I had not heard of such a thing. Wow. And so in about 20, 30 minutes, I was able to just sort of stand up, get my bearings, and find the camp. I went back to camp and I told my girlfriend that was with me. She was also on Vision Quest with a different purpose and intent. She changed her life as well. And that was the beginning of it. And it took me 6 months before I told anyone because I had to adapt to, what does that mean? How does that feel?
The new avatar.
Yeah. Yep. So that was how I got my name. That's the short version of how I got my name.
So in a way, when you speak about going on a vision quest, you actually somewhere your life was how do I put this? Your life was in search of finding the right path. The energy, the soul inside you was searching that, okay, where do I head from now? And that's when this happened to you. Please correct me.
No, that's correct. I'm a child of adverse childhood experiences. I had a very traumatized childhood. I had a very domineering mother. In America, I was born in the mid-40s. So for my mother to be divorced by the time I was 7, and therefore a single parent in America, it was challenging. So by the time I got married and then later divorced, I began searching for why am I in so much pain and suffering? I was very, very religious. I was raised Seventh-day Adventist. I had a deep connection with Jesus. The rest of it was like man talk. It did not make sense to me. And Jesus was very connected the way I worked with Jesus to nature. So nature and Jesus did not equal religion for us. So when we were traumatized and we'd go out in the backyard, we'd call out to Jesus and he'd show up.
Right.
And so he would give us guidance. He'd help us understand. I mean, it got to the point by the time we were in the 5th grade, we were correcting our Bible teachers because we had direct information from Jesus and we wanted to grow up and be like Jesus. And by the time we were 12, we told our mother that and she objected. Fortunately, the principal of our grade school, the principal was also the minister of the church. And I went to him and he said, no, for sure, I will talk to your mother. So I got baptized so that I could now be like Jesus and help people come out of suffering. I began a meditation class in high school. I wanted to be like Jesus because Jesus said the things that he was doing, we could do and more. I was real clear on that. So I was one of those kids who walked around carrying her Bible, was always serious, was always looking to help somebody. That was who I was. When I got married, suddenly being a mother and a wife shifted everything because there was a need to be in the religious aspect of it. And it wasn't matching up and I wasn't in the right place. But I now know I was to mother those 2 girls. I was to set up a situation for their life where they now are in a broken family and blah, 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 you know. And that's a part of what I've learned over the decades. All the chaos, all the trauma, all of it is a gift that's being given to us so that we can find our true self. And so that was really what was going on back then. I'm one of those personalities. Actually, I discovered that I'm on the spectrum, so I can say, autism, yay! It's a different brain. It means we see things differently. And at this point, I can look at my whole life and go, nature always, the mother, always gave me things in decades. So for a decade, I'll do this and get really good at it. And then over it, now I have to look for something else. And so every decade, so that means I've had 7 great opportunities to discover aspects. And it allows you to keep expanding. It allows you to never get static or never get too traditional. Because we forget the nature of life is change. And then it's because we've become so human and we're trying to prove that we're the best and the biggest and the baddest that we keep trying to establish traditions that we can then war about and say, no, we can't change tradition. It's supposed to be no, it wasn't. We're just
very dogmatic. Yeah.
You know, and we start wars about that. We kill people behind thinking that there's some kind of tradition. Humans have never been static. We have always been evolving. And we are still evolving. My idea is let's do this deliberately instead of accidentally, oh, look where we are now because some wondrous soul came through as a genius and then gave that information, which is always given to be shared. We keep thinking that we should be holding on to things.
Yeah.
But fortunately, that's a part of the patriarchy and oops, that's on its way out.
I'm so glad about that. I mean, the entire egoistic point of view of keeping it to yourself. No, I'm the one and I know it all and not giving it out. That functioning of the mind is so narrow and it's just like so self-oriented rather than giving it out, spreading love and knowledge.
Let me give you a perspective on that just for fun. Okay.
Sure.
If we look at human beings as a child, and we're looking at that evolution, and we can look at all the stuff that went before postmodern man. Okay, that's what we'll give the postmodern man. But when we look at what we call civilized, all right, you and I and the rest of the audience understand. We're not there yet.
True.
We're not civilized. It's like it's a goal. It's sort of like in America, in India, democracy. We're not there yet, but it is quite the goal. So when I look at humans in that perspective, they're babies. The species I mean, there
Mm.
are animals, hell, chimpanzees have been here longer. Okay.
True.
And so when I look at what we've accomplished as babies, we're almost where we're potty trained, almost. But when I look around the whole planet, almost, but we're not
Not yet.
not
Yeah.
yet. And
Yeah.
so I look at humanity as 4-year-olds. And
Wow.
every once in a while, we'll have a genius like Stephen Hawking or Einstein,
Yes.
and we'll have a genius of heart like Gandhi. Those are,
True.
or
Abdul Kalam.
what's the leader in South Africa? Those
Mr. Nelson Mandela.
those are 6 and 7-year-olds, and they own it.
Wow.
I mean, even Einstein was recognizing he only got that much. And what
Yeah,
we
he
know,
himself, I guess he said he's utilizing 4% of his brain, something like that.
when the average human is only using 1 to 2. And
Exactly.
so we are still young. I mean, we look at the brain, we have neurologists now who let us know we are using such a small percentage of our brains. So that
So
let
true.
me know I don't have to be upset with these children. Every time I look at the tangerine toddler, I go, see, they are not grown yet. They are still children. They still have temper tantrums in public. Okay?
I agree.
You can't get mad about that. You got to go, oh, the children wasn't raised well, came from a barn, but they're still children. And they force us to view them the way the mother does, as
Right.
children, to love them unconditionally, because gosh knows they didn't get that growing up. If they went through trauma as children, they didn't get an unconditional love sense. They might have had lots of money, lots of privilege, but they didn't get to develop will. They didn't get to experience having pure and joyous emotions. Most folks stuff down emotions. Abhishek, that's the number one thing that makes us human. Our
It
emotions.
does. It does.
And it's the one thing that we see patriarchy came in and thought, we can control this. It's the emotions. Squish them down. Cut them out. And we did a fabulous job of pretending we could do that. For 3,000 years, we have literally crushed our own inner emotions. And that's all that's really happening when we say the mother is returning. We're just, the matriarchy merely means, okay, we're going to go back to being human. This is all just a wonderful experiment anyway. And it's consciousness that is having the experience. We're pretending it's us. But we're just a cell on this planet of consciousness.
True.
And so it's really the entire planet, but we're the most expressive because we're still the babies. Look at how we poop everywhere on everything. You know, we burp all over everything. We pull at everything. We want to understand. We're babies. And we're still learning that we're okay because we've taught each other that we're not. I mean, one of my favorite things to talk about is how we got lost in sin. Did you know that the word sin is an archery term that actually comes from missing the mark?
Really?
That's
I wasn't aware about it.
That's all the darn word means. Missing the mark. Oops, missed it. Try again. Oops, missed it. Try again. Oh, look, I got it. That's what we're to be doing. But no. The boys
We know it all.
You know, and the boys took charge, and the boys said, God said, and everybody bought it.
Yeah.
And that's why and how we got to be in the ship, the kind of condition that we're in.
Right.
And then we have to learn something called forgiveness, because we've created a condition that means you might have hurt me. So now that I've told you that you hurt me, I'm going to forgive you. Maybe. All of it made up. But if you sit with a group of children, happy kids, and I even saw those children under freeways in India. I saw happy kids that were here would have thought that they were poor and had no clue they are the poorest thing I'd ever seen in my life. These kids were the
Exactly.
happiest children. I mean, their smile was so big it hurt my feelings. Okay.
Exactly.
When you watch them and the way that they play, that is what this is all about. I mean, we
The
hear
true
it from
happiness.
Krishna, we hear it from Shiva, we hear all of the other teachers explain, even Jesus. We're here to enjoy being here.
Absolutely.
How did we lose that? How did that get all twisted and turned so that we're now talking about 99% of all humans on this
Mm,
planet are living in trauma? Because we're not
true.
just talking personal trauma, the collective trauma that we've created. And I don't mean hurricane
Exactly.
trauma. I don't mean tsunami trauma. I mean, I have not been on this planet, and I've been here I've been here 73 years.
Right.
Not 1 year has there not been a war going on this planet.
Mm,
And I'm just talking for 75 years, there's been war somewhere.
yes. Exactly.
And yet we keep praying for peace. We keep believing that we deserve peace, but then we support killing other people.
Right. Right.
And if we kill them, we're killing us. We forget that everything is connected. Or, okay. I will own some people just don't know that. So part of our job, all of us, and you too, that's what this show is about,
Absolutely.
is helping people understand, hello, Matrix was not just made up, it's real. It may not be the way they made the movie, but the idea that everything is connected.
Absolutely.
That we are
So
better
true.
than a tree, we're not better than a hawk, we're not better than a freaking cockroach, because the mother made us all. And we all have a place here. And
so true.
That's what makes all of this so beautiful. To me, I think
I totally agree with you. It's the interconnectedness. That's why we are alive. Even in the jungles,
yes,
it's interconnected. Every species of animals, starting from a small ant or even algae, it grows till it reaches the lion. So everybody has the ecosystem in place, which is so beautiful. If we humans understand that from the core of our being rather than intellectually, things will become so much more peaceful and everybody's going to be in so much of harmony. We all
humans are obligated to help make the whole planet beautiful.
yes,
that's their obligation.
Because we are the so-called intelligent species who exist right now, who have the knowledge per se.
I think even when I went back in the mid 80s from a shamanic place, we knew then that dolphins, whales, and some large sharks are really much more intelligent than humans.
Yes.
They kind of damp that down, but we now know. I mean, there are insects that are really more intelligent.
True.
This intelligent thing is a misnomer because consciousness is intelligent. We assume our bodies are not intelligent. We assume it's happening here. But our bodies are much more intelligent because, excuse me, I am not having to use any intellect to have my heart beat. I am not using any intellect to make sure the blood is circulating through or that I'm taking another breath. So there's an intelligence happening without my mind being actually involved, though it is connected. So what then we have to acknowledge, and this is where humans get lost sometimes, we are infinite beings. That's that little difference. But we're having a human experience. Okay? And so as an experience, this is human. And we're getting to see how varied it can be. But we're not appreciating it. Therefore, we're not honoring it. Therefore, we are creating and maintaining our own suffering as an experience.
Exactly.
And that's the key. So all I try to do after I learned that how I did it was help people understand you're in pain and suffering. Guess what? It's not coming from outside you. You're setting you up so that it'll come to you. You're magnetizing it to you. And then once they get over being mad at me for saying that to them, to their face, then they want to know, so how can I change that then? And that's where we go. Because we can. Because we're here learning how we create.
Absolutely.
That's what makes this such an opportunity to look for the chunk of gold, the pearl, the gem inside the chaos. The chaos, which the Big Bang came from, is exactly how we create. And my other favorite thing about the chaos is that since the Big Bang represents Om, just really spread out.
Right.
It is my belief that we, when we are having an orgasm, are doing our own individual Big Bang Om. And yet we forget how to even appreciate that. So that
in the larger perspective,
all of it is for the beauty. All of it is so that we can finally recognize the unconditional love that's being given to us all the time. And yet, she allows us to be as miserable as we wish.
Talking about her, I would like to understand more on it. What is the significance of her? That is the mother. And how did you stumble upon her existence?
Stumble. When I was, let's go back to grade school.
Sure.
When it was first explained, God, the Creator Father. Hello?
Yes.
I was 12, and I'm like, how can a man be the creator? I don't understand. But it's God. I may not understand all of the anatomy about men because there's not one living in my house, but I know that this is mother energy. And even though my mother had to practice and work at being a strong woman in America because she's a woman of color, there was a nurturing, because remember, I keep going outside when I would get stressed. And it doesn't take much to see how everything keeps growing, how everything keeps changing. Even when you put asphalt or concrete down, a plant's going to crack up through it. That to me was a symbol of the mother. And when I first began asking about that to Jesus, his response was, of course. And I said, well, then how come they don't talk about it? And he says, they do. They just call it the Holy Ghost. And I went, that makes sense. So the mother is the Holy Ghost. And I ran with that one, okay?
Wow.
Over time, I began to understand the Divine Mother is another image that they would put with the Divine Father, but she's, as they wanted all women to understand, she's always in the background. The woman should never be up front. Well, my soul chose a woman as my mother who was always up front, who was always the dominant person in the room. When my mother crossed over, 9 ministers officiated her funeral. My mother had been so big in Los Angeles, it took 9 ministers to come together to talk about her life. That's a dominant woman.
That's beautiful.
But I wanted you to hear, I wasn't prepared to be the woman who sits in the background. I wasn't raised that way. I wasn't raised to be silent if you see an abuse out there. I was taught you're supposed to speak up and go get it. So all of the teachings that I was hearing in the church weren't adding up. And the other part of it was this God who had given 10 commandments coming across as pretty jealous sometimes. I mean, he would just knock somebody down dead because they touched something accidentally trying to help it, which is what happened to the Ark of the Covenant. And I was in the 4th grade when I heard that story. And I questioned the minister, why would God kill a man who's trying to help? And they explained that God just is all powerful. And that That was not what I was getting from Jesus. It was not what I was getting from nature. And so I kept asking and pushing. And I remember how I pissed everybody off saying, God is a mother. God is a female. And they all came at me and I stood firm and I've never come off of it.
But it's so true if you look at it from the perspective of, I mean, I look at it from the perspective that we all come from a mother. And how can one not think about it from that simplest of ways of life? Anything, whether it's a human or an animal, it's coming from a mother. It's, it's not even rocket science. It's simple to understand.
I believe that the reason why the universe allowed me to become a mother so early is so that I could experience how it might have been me who allowed that sperm in, but once that connected, the bodies took over. And I'm just a vehicle. And it was at that point when I went into labor without doing anything, I realized this is why the boys don't get it. They don't experience this. They don't experience.
We are not lucky. I term it like we are not lucky to be experiencing so beautiful, something like that.
There isn't anything. There is not anything like that.
I agree.
And and I've gone around and tried a whole bunch of things because we're here to have experiences, but that one is still a pinnacle. And I understand that everyone does not have to do that, but the experience itself brings it really clear that boys don't birth babies.
True. We are not capable to do that. Not at all. The power is with you women.
No. Boys would not be able to handle labor at all. So
absolutely.
They don't handle colds real well. So it's real. Break their finger and they are lost. Okay. So yeah. And I think that's another thing to remember is that we always get opportunities to have it in another life. Now, I don't accept or buy into past lives because there's only time here when we're conscious. But I understand that we all have 144,000 aspects to our soul that are all having their various experiences. And once we do align with that self inside, we have access to those 144,000.
Very true. Very true.
And so that's when you guys can then go into one of those lifetimes and have the experience of having a baby. The same way many of us go into lifetimes to see what it's like to be a warrior. And we play that.
True.
And we realize, boring, all you're doing is killing. If you can't create, why kill? It does not make sense. So, but that's what this is. It's the suffering that in this particular 3,000 to 3,500 year time span that we're playing in creating and maintaining suffering and trauma so that it becomes part of our evolving deliberately.
Right.
Otherwise, we can evolve, and we have, but that's through the DNA.
True.
We just birthing over eons, we evolve. It's much faster when we're conscious and we recognize how we're creating what we're creating. And the real key to all of this, bottom line, give up the judgment.
Simple.
There isn't any other animal that's judgmental. And we have judgments on things that just, how did you do that? Animals discern. I get that. And even our pets can decide what they want to do or if they want to obey or whatever. But we form judgments based on information that is made up.
Right.
We actually believe that being mental is what makes us human. And we miss the mark on that, which is why I believe karma changes for each eon. I don't believe karma has anything to do with past lives whatsoever. And that's where I diverge from Sri Aurobindo, because even when I research all of that, they're still looking at a past life. rather than acknowledging that past, present, future is only here when we're awake. Because we can go to sleep and not have to deal with time. Time is just a tool. And we haven't always used it as a tool. We didn't even know about time till what? The Renaissance in 1500s.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah. We get lost in the past life thing. Our karma happens in this lifetime. Otherwise, you miss it. And we don't have to get it. I mean, we can stay in suffering and die. Because there's no good or bad about this. It's your experience. If you want to have an entire life in misery, then you can. I mean, it's
perfect. A choice.
Yeah. Most people don't know it's a choice. And that's where we have to do these kinds of shows.
I was just thinking about this when you spoke my mind. I mean, when you said this, that we all are there to bring them to the awakening.
Yeah.
I mean, we are so much in sync. That really makes me very thrilled. So that's really something.
And there's more and more and more of us with time because the children are coming in awake. So we're evolving. I'm just wanting more of us to do it deliberately.
Yes. Like more being proactive.
I think I'm speaking for the universe. I think the mother wants all of us to recognize that we are our own gift because she's made it so.
So true.
And whether we're talking Jesus, Lord Shiva, Lord Krishna, it doesn't matter. I mean, we can go any major teacher who came in, they came in to say, hey, you can do this too. It's not that hard. You just have to let go of the programming you were given as a child. You have to recognize the gift in the trauma and go ahead and retrieve it. So
true. Wonderful. That brings us to the third question. Well, I got to know that you've been to India 3 times. What knowledge did you acquire during these trips, and what compelled you to come back again and again?
All 3 trips involved the Oneness University, which is not called that now, and I have to think of O&O, but it was Sri Amma Bhagavan. And if I tell the story, how I was compelled, I had finished my master's work as an anthropologist, and I was ready and was applying for their doctoral program. And they rejected me.
Oh.
They rejected me.
That's surprising.
Oh, no, I had a nervous breakdown. That's how surprised I was. The reason that they gave was because I was too spiritual for their program. They needed someone who was going to be more social activist and be a rager. And I always try and tone my Kali down. I prefer to present Sarasvati rather than my Kali. And I had all sorts of reasons, especially since my professor, who was from India, she was a young woman from India, she felt that I should be an African-American activist. And I'm like, no, my interests are in India. And for her, India is all religion. So so we kept bumping heads on that. And I kept writing papers that dealt with Kali and shamanism or Krishna and whatever. Anything. I was interested. I was pursuing.
Right.
Oh, I'll give you one that really pissed her. I had been told in a meditation that Ganesh was originally a divine goddess, a mother. And I wanted to do research on that. And that was, turns out that was true. Okay. And I even found books on it. Okay. But they rejected me. And so I went looking, I had a breakdown. So I went looking for a therapist. The therapist, and I interviewed 21 people. And the therapist that I ended up with, after about 8 weeks, she shared with me that her husband, who was also a therapist, had just found Sri Amma Bhagavan and had come back from one of the first initiations that they were doing to the outside world so that we could
Okay.
become blessing givers. Well, that was right up my alley. A blessing. What does that mean?
Blessing giver.
Whoa. So we kept doing our sessions, and she brought me this little card with Shriyama Bhagavan on it. And she said, these are the avatars that I was telling you about with the oneness movement. And this is the chant, the Mula mantra that they do. So she laid me out on a yoga mat. She put her hands right up under the back of my neck.
Okay.
And began chanting the Mula mantra.
Okay.
Abhishek, energy went through me like it was a fire hose.
Wow.
You could almost, I could see it just rushing through me. And she probably chanted for about 3 minutes or so. It felt like an entire lifetime. When I set up, I said, did you get that? I need more. I want to know more about them. So she said, well,
right.
Have their first meeting in San Francisco on May 16th. And I said, where will it be? Write it down. We're done. I'm going there. And she said, oh, no. No, I'm happy that you're happy, but we're not done. I said, oh, yeah, we are. What that was? No, you and I, we're done. I'm going there. So turns out May 16th was graduation day for college. And I missed it because I went to the oneness thing instead. And from that first meeting, that was May 16th. I was in India August 1st. And there for 21 days, came back as a blessing giver, got back to my apartment and stood in the kitchen in the dark going, I'm like Jesus now, I can bless people.
Wow, that feeling must be something different to have that kind of an aura inside your own self.
So phenomenal. It's a diksha, the blessing.
Right,
and originally we were called diksha givers. And there was a problem because Bhagavan was the first to allow outsiders from outside of India to come from all over the world and receive the darshan so that we could be diksha givers around the world. I'm honored to have been a part of the beginning of that back in 2005. That's when I went. I think he began giving it to the world in 2003. All of the trips were going back to just deepen the process. Right. The last trip was because they were doing a major process for the not harmonic convergence, the shift 2012. And so that was last. Yes. There were what, almost 50,000 of us there. The temple, my first trip there, the temple was still in construction. The temple is architecturally phenomenal. And it's designed so that thousands can meditate at one time.
Wow, that's
His
powerful.
son and daughter-in-law and granddaughter are now running the organization. He and his wife, Aman Bhagavan, have retired. And so I sort of moved away because it's now more young folks and etc. But
which is good in a way.
Well, no, it's fabulous because it's still growing and there's still more people and they're now doing them online. So people can receive all of the blessings online now instead of having to go to India. So that was my reason for going, but I would stay, after the initiation or whatever, I'd stay another 20 days if I could, just to absorb. And on the second trip, I did go spend time at Sri Aurobindo's ashram in Pondicherry. Okay. I had to because I was using him as one of the main data sources for my dissertation. So Sri Aurobindo is still a mentor, even though he had crossed over. I have his photos here with my other avatars because to me he is. My issue with Orville is that they're still buying into that only men should be allowed to write for the papers or try and translate or do commentary on Sri Aurobindo. But I'm just biding my time because I'm going to be involved with Orville. I have been involved with Orville.
Right.
I wrote a
Right.
paper after my second trip to Orville, and the paper was about what I called apartheid in India.
Apartheid. Wow, that's interesting.
Well, because Orville is an international center where people have come in and set up residence there to share his teachings and etc. I
Mm-hmm.
did not care at all, not even that much, for the way they treated the native people. You do not get to treat people who live there, who this is their home, just because you've moved in here. That was straight out of colonialism for me.
Right.
And oops, that was where I got my Indian professor's admiration. I wrote an 80-page paper that was definitely a social activist paper. And then she's ready to support me. She wanted to even be on my dissertation committee. But nope,
Lovely.
she was too mean to me in the But I don't care where I go. If you are rude to other human beings and I happen to see it, I don't have a way to ignore it. Because I don't have a way. I don't have a way to ignore it.
True. True.
So I did.
That's not done. That's not done.
Yeah. And there have been changes made because of that. I haven't been back to see what those changes are, but I was assured there were changes being made because of that. Because I made it public. It wasn't just a paper I gave to a professor. It's a paper I shared all over the whole campus, even with the president of the school. Because I was
so
upset.
in a way you were a pioneer. In a way, you were a pioneer of change for that system, if you may say so, to bring about this.
It's not something I would say clearly. You can say it. Yeah. I was just doing what seemed necessary. Abhishek, I actually feel guided by the mother, so that when I see things like that, it's almost me saying, please don't let me have to go get Colleen. Please fix this as soon as you can, because that right there is inappropriate behavior. And then I back off.
So true.
And I never had to go to that mode. Actually, I mean, I've been able to protect myself in really challenging, she's all by herself and those guys are coming at her kind of mode. But those are still the mother coming through. I mean, I've scared off potential threats just because the mother can come through me.
Wow, that's
and
beautiful.
And I teach how to do that. Because, first of all, you cannot be a bully to me if I can blow up and be a bigger bully first.
True, true.
And I don't see why boys should only have that. I think girls can have that.
Absolutely. For the right cause, definitely need to be a bully. Definitely. Because people, unfortunately, they don't realize that they feel, okay, if I'm letting somebody down, I have the power. But what if you're underestimating the power of that person and he backfires? Then you start saying, oh, I'm sorry. I mean, first think in your head, why would you do something like that to somebody else? It's like so against the basic humanity, the basic respect and dignity of life.
Yeah.
So it's much needed to be a bigger bully. I mean, I have been that way a couple of times myself when I don't want and I don't like the way the vibes are in the environment with certain people.
Right.
It's like supporting evil. When you're actually going in the sync of the flow, it's actually supporting them to become stronger and stronger, where they start to feel, oh, we are all, it is us. So we have to take a stand, which is beautiful. I'm so glad that you have been that way all your life, you know.
Yep. Didn't have a choice. I think
Absolutely.
Martin Luther King, who said that our silence can be violence, it was either Mandela or Martin Luther King. But right now, that's what's happening here in America is so many people are finally recognizing the systemic racism that they're finally ready to stand up and scream. And so what's lovely about that is it forces our tangerine toddler to have temper tantrums so that he keeps showing that, see, even grown-ups can still be babies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wonderful. That brings me to the next question.
Okay.
In the given current scenario, where the pandemic, looming war, natural disasters, do you think we can make a successful paradigm shift in this entire chaos? that we are seeing the last couple of years and now?
If you stop and look at this, Abhishek, we've made major shifts for this entire planet to have altogether gone through those last 6 months.
Mm,
We had the entire world locked down.
yes. Never ever has happened like that.
Okay?
Not at this level. Yeah.
That indicates we shifted somehow. All the conspiracy talk that was going on and still is, but we all agreed, okay, for everyone's safety, we'll shut down. And we did.
Mm, yes.
Now, one of the things I think happens for us in postmodern era is we want everything to be like that.
Yeah. Instant
I want
gratification.
it now. Fast food, fast
Yeah.
clothes, fast cars, fast relationship, fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We are doing more damage trying to manipulate time or
Mm,
even not bothering to understand how time evolves so that we're frustrating ourselves. We have been in a shift for quite some time. I mean, it depends on what we would call a paradigm shift. If we're looking for peace on earth, well, that's going to be one at a time. It's each one of us figuring out how we're not creating peace, and then we start projecting for it, and that connects and that connects. So that's going to take time, but we're still doing everything at an accelerated rate. So that quote amount of time is necessary. The other part of it is all of these natural forces are the little steps that are gently nudging us along the way. If we were not in a paradigm shift, we would have lost a lot more people during that coronavirus thing. The people who left weren't always leaving because of the virus. I mean, it looked like that, but many people are just tired. Some were just over their trauma. And I mean, some folks literally created what I call suicide by just showing up where they knew the virus was. There are any number of people who, we don't believe in the virus, we're not wearing a mask, and then they just go back to their church, and then 2/3 of the church is dead. That's a suicide. Whether they're doing
the term was COVIDiots.
yeah. Oh,
For such people.
I like that. I hadn't heard, I have to write that down. COVID.
COVIDiots, yes.
But you see, that's what I'm talking about. So even those idiots were making paradigm shifts. They gave up being here. That's a paradigm shift because it's our nature to cling to being in life. But no, there was a whole rally in Oklahoma where thousands of people showed up without masks. So that's a part of us looking at what's a real paradigm shift. And a paradigm shift is all of us are still here. Now, many have changed their whole way of seeing life because of that. We have no idea. The children, they just went through this like it was normal. So they're already shifted. They're already looking differently at the way the world is. And this is a gradual thing because we choose to be in bodies where it's slowly revealed to us what the reality is. You bring it on too fast, we start and going crazy. So it needs to be at a certain rhythm, at a certain pace. And then there's those who are on the front line who get it, who then pass it on to the next and pass. So it's sort of like watching an assembly line of conscious awakening.
Right.
The other part of it is, depends on which group you belong to, what you would consider to be a paradigm shift. So in my mind, this is humans trying to escape their own level of discomfort rather than let's just sit in our now and appreciate everything that's actually going on. We keep throwing stuff out there as, is that the light? Is that the light? And one of the things that I did learn in oneness, and I believe it was Amma who said this, a good chunk of our suffering is because we're always in a state of becoming. We're always trying
Yes.
to get more. We're always trying
Yes.
to move beyond rather than how grand this all is.
Mm.
So when people say they're looking for a paradigm shift, that sort of says to me, they'd be very miserable in where they are right now, huh? But they want a paradigm shift. This, look around the sun.
Yeah.
Here's, I remember when I first said, when the photos first came out, 6 weeks in,
Mm.
6 weeks, this is even in India, when the photos first came out of how nature was creeping back out because the humans had been locked down for 6 weeks,
Mm.
alligators
Yes.
coming up,
Yes.
and
Peacocks, lions.
rivers running clean, skies
Absolutely.
clear. That,
Beautiful skies.
that, boys and girls, that was a paradigm shift. That was a, and the nation was like, oh, OMG, oh, you know,
My
because
mother was like, I'm actually breathing now.
see, that was a paradigm shift. That was a planetary paradigm shift where the
Mm.
animals had a break from the polluting
Absolutely.
baby humans who poop everywhere.
Absolutely.
That was a paradigm shift. And so now
Right.
and here's the thing. If we don't acknowledge that was a paradigm shift, we
Mm-hmm.
miss that was a paradigm shift.
Mm.
We always are looking for what's next.
True. Rather than being
And
here
when we
in the
get
present.
there, we don't even say thank you.
Yeah.
We don't express great gratitude.
Right.
I was with groups of Americans in India, and you're going to laugh again. One of the things that really touched me was hearing the women outside of Orville who are getting up early, starting the fires, beginning their chant so they can wake the gods. That was the most moving. That changed my whole life. Okay. Third day, and I was getting up with them.
Wow.
Second day, I was up. I wanted to be out there.
Mm.
And watching women create a column. Third morning, learned at breakfast that 3 of the American women had gone to management to find out who the heck was making all that noise in the morning and how could they make it quit. I'm really trying not to start yelling, okay? But I need to understand that that place had never heard language like they heard from me that day. I went postal. Do you guys know what postal means? I went crazy. I cursed people. I called them ugly Americans. I lost it. Because you do not come into somebody else's country and talk about them making noise when they are waking the gods because it's waking you up. Oh, bring it down, bring it down. So,
That's insane. That's
by
actually
my
insane.
I was more upset with the manager for going and telling the villagers. I
Oh
cursed her
my
out
goodness.
too. It was like, you don't do that. You don't stand up for people who are being ugly. You don't. So, again, people do not appreciate. People do not show honor and respect. People want to still do this
Mm.
hierarchical stuff as humans. And part of it comes
Mm.
from first graders looking down at kindergartners and going, I'm in first grade and you're just in kindergarten because somebody did that to them. And then we just do it all the way up, even as grown-ups, which is why I keep coming back to humans are 4 years old, max, as a species. It's the only way.
I agree with you on that for sure. You know, the funny part being the people who think if they're in grade one and they're bullying the people who are in KG or kindergarten, they forget the fact there is grade two.
Yeah.
And
Well,
when they're like in the optimum level, so called, they think, okay, I've done it all, achieved it all. They forget there is a higher
always.
frequency, a higher energy, which is actually guiding this entire creation. And it's insane. And this is what happens. Corona happens. The
Yeah.
natural disasters happen to just get you back in sync. That, buddy, what are you thinking? You're not the one who's doing this. It's a higher energy. Please get in sync with it, with Mother, with the universe.
Or
The
not.
sooner.
For us, it would be. But we have to own, she gives them all permission to be any way they want.
So true. The choice.
So what we want to do is encourage them, or what I say here is we should dangle chocolate.
If you remember, there was a game where I don't remember what is it. So the kids had a spoon in their mouth and they had some chocolate and they're running a race. So at the end of the race, they could actually have that sweet. So the
Yes.
further you ran, the faster you ran, and then you can have the sweet. That's what needs to be
Right.
done. Or
Same thing.
have something like a
Same
carrot.
thing. You dangle, and see, I say chocolate because I don't like carrots. So if you dangled a carrot, I'm not interested. I dangle some chocolate.
So now we know you have a sweet
Right
tooth.
there. Huh?
Now we know
What?
you have a sweet tooth.
Yes, but it's very particular. I don't
All
like
right.
cheap candy. It has to be really good. Okay.
All
I
right.
like expensive everything because I like the best.
Absolutely.
But that's because the mother shows us the best. And because I can be in that moment and see what she's offering and be so grateful. Because
Grateful.
one of the things that I've learned, no matter what you're going through, if you can find an attitude of gratitude, gratitude breeds bliss. Straight across.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And when we
That's
can
the part.
find that and maintain that, we are in sync.
Totally. I so agree with you on that. Absolutely. You know, I was really intrigued while I was reading about you, and you have been advocating this from a very early age. I want to know what is the concept of ACEs, the Adverse Childhood Experiences.
Okay. I discovered ACEs in 2013, right after I graduated with my doctorate, and I was looking for a direction to go in.
Mm,
ACEs is the acronym for Adverse Childhood Experiences. The term actually began in the late 80s when some neurologists and pediatricians discovered that children who have had X number of trauma experiences have certain health issues. And these doctors were then experimenting and gathering data over the next 20 years to the point that they were ascribing certain ways of raising children and then treating children who had gone through that. They also came to the conclusion that children with what's called, attention deficit, children with
attention deficit disorder.
children,
Yeah.
all of those things that Big Pharma has been throwing drugs at are coming out of the traumas that were not addressed in their childhood. If a child goes through, say, a bad car accident or a tsunami, if there's a witness right then, right there, that's soothing and calming their nerves down, they get through that trauma, and that's resilience. The children that we're talking about, there are 10 major keys. One of them, for example, alcoholism, could be mom or dad, or alcoholism in the house. There could be someone who has a mental illness. There could be someone who has chronic health issues. There could be a death in the family of one of the parents. So there's 10 different things that are considered acute trauma that if there is not a witness for that child, they internalize it. One of the things that what I work on, and this is not in their psychology, because once I had been working through traumas, I was evolving a psychology for the clients that I was working with as a shaman. And I thought I was doing it from that shamanic place. So I became acutely aware that when that child is traumatized, it shuts down psychologically, emotionally, and hides in the body. Depending upon neighbor kids or other siblings or cousins, there'll be another personality that will evolve that feels that it can now handle being in this, and it'll try. So I have had clients with usually something like 5 to 7 hidden personalities that are giving them inner conflict and inner pain, and they're fighting with each other all inside. This is a part of what happens when you have to split off in order to survive. It also explains why so many children in those kinds of traumatized homes commit suicide in their teens or later in life.
Right.
They have been fed and programmed really misinformation. So what happens is we begin downloading into our brain while in the womb.
True.
When you're born, the first physical major trauma is coming through that canal or being yanked out of your mama's side. Okay. But there's comfort. There's a witness immediately. There's all these.
Yes.
So you live through that trauma. We know of kids where that's not true, where the mother dies or they're put in an orphanage. Now that's, again, we're back into the AC. So what now happens is these children are still struggling to be resilient, but everything that's been put into us, we are now getting a programmed brain. So when I'm born, first things that are being said went into the brain. I'm still an infant, so it's in the brain. More
it's
stuff.
Like a sponge. You're getting it.
Yes. Yeah. So by the time we are approximately 9 years old, we have been completely programmed. That's about when the ego develops. I know I can do this. I know I can, but everything I know comes from what I learned from my mama and my daddy about me. I didn't hear it that way, so I don't see it that way. But now I am only seeing the world through the visuals mom and dad gave me. First few teachers, etc. So I am now on the belief that the world is the way I'm seeing it. And so I'm creating my realities based upon how I see the world. And I'm believing it's me. But I've been programmed. And it might have been false programming. For example, I would think from day one that I was so ugly that I would never in this lifetime ever have a friend. I was that ugly. And she can stay with that consistently through my high school years. So I went into fashion to prove to us we're not ugly. I could see that in us. So I can then see it in others. We go after what we're trying to change the identity because we're so unhappy with what we've been told about ourselves. Not all children are raised to feel confident. Some of us have to go for what would make us feel confident. And so adverse childhood experiences, basically for the medical world, are for them to stop assuming that stuff comes from out there, but to understand that we're creating from in here. So there are people who are accident prone because they were programmed to be that way. There are people who literally sabotage whatever success they're trying to achieve because they were told they would never achieve it. There are people who actually move around and act ugly because they were called that all their lives. I sit and watch the tangerine toddler trying to understand what that boy had to have been told. He's in a wealthy family. And yet look at how he behaves as the leader of a nation in public. That was a horrible childhood. You see what I mean? He was hugely traumatized. I can't even hate him for that. I'm looking for his daddy to smack. But you see what I'm saying? So a boy who is in a wealthy family had to have an abusive dad to be the kind of man he is today. That's what I meant by smack his daddy. Because I go look at your parent. When I see somebody's pain,
it's the upbringing.
Your parent. So what happens is understanding that if I'm creating a reality that is causing me misery, I need to have a new story. I need to have a new identity. I need to rewrite me.
Yes.
And that's what I do as a coach, is helping people understand. You've been running on handed down ideals and beliefs. What do you now believe? And let's look at that. Let's pull that up and forward. Let's write a new story. Let's create new ways of creating the reality.
True. True. That's beautiful. I mean, that is what is needed because there's so many kids who also, I would say, adults who are actually kids in their brain because they have so many barricades, they have so many barriers because of the thought process that they have, because of the thinking. They are programmed in a certain manner to actually start rewiring your own brain and to be able to see what you really want is not what exactly is good for you, but from a level that you can achieve so much more if you only changed your thought process. The exact thing which you shared right now, to take that away from that person, whatever they have been having in their heads due to their peer pressure, due to whatever upbringing they've had, and because of thinking lowly about their own self, the self-esteem, self-worth, to be able to just cut that thought. Like that's when the quantum physics come into the picture. Like you actually rewiring, like
Yeah.
every thought that we have, you're actually making a neuron connection, and you keep building it, you keep giving it that message, that energy, and it starts to build into something so strong that you can actually change your entire life. So
Well, once
it's
you
beautiful.
rewire, if you rewire just a little bit of it, you've changed.
Exactly.
But I want to try and see if we can do something here.
Sure,
I,
sure,
our brain. Let me throw this at you first, just to make you
sure.
fall back.
Okay, okay.
Consider for a moment that we do not think.
Hmm. Like it's a
That
blank
thinking
space.
is a
You
misnomer.
know.
Thinking is a misnomer.
Hmm, hmm,
Our brain processes data like a computer, and it can put that information together as well as a computer. All right?
right,
But it's not thinking. It's realigning, rearranging, it's rewiring. So
right.
we function and create our reality based upon beliefs.
True.
We're given a belief. The world is kind. The
Yes.
world is cruel. The world is
Hmm,
giving. The world is
hmm,
taking. So it's not about thinking. That's going to be an overview. And then depending upon what experiences we have, because this is a program. Somebody gave us the program. Mom and dad gave
hmm,
us their program. I mean, the
hmm.
biggest thing about being a human and the way that we're designed, we don't have to do anything but just survive. The DNA is designed for us to follow blindly in the
True.
footprints of our ancestors. We don't have to do anything, but just do that.
True.
It's those individuals who are not wanting to follow in those footprints that are now
Hmm.
having to rearrange and or rewire, rewrite, redefine the data. This
Right.
brain is a receiver transmitter.
Absolutely.
It is a big CPU.
True.
And we
True.
know a robot cannot think,
We feed it.
period. And then we hit a button and it sends. So, first off, if we could own, I am not thinking. I
Hmm.
am using data, part of a software package that connects to this software package, that connects to this software package, and I'm putting out data.
Hmm.
From
Hmm.
here, the data is coming to create the reality that I have. And then I can have data, info, opinions in a way. But again,
Hmm.
I'm still putting together part of the program I was given because my opinions are based upon what I was initially, and I'm only creating based upon what I was in. So it's a data exchange very similar to where, and this is why I'm saying quantum, when you were saying paradigm shift,
Right.
when we come up with computers, we created a paradigm shift, you know? And the mere fact that you and I are talking to each other from our opposite sides of the world,
Of the world. Exactly. Too.
okay,
Oh,
literally. So
exactly.
this and this all work together in a matrix. And here's part of the patriarchal crap that was handed down to us during the Renaissance period.
Hmm.
I think, therefore I am.
Hmm.
That is an original Western concept of my intellect and intelligence. And as I say in my dissertation, that's the beginning of the mental era. And what we're talking about is man claiming that what makes me different from everything else here is that I think. And I am here to say, oops, no, you don't. You are transmitting info just the same way those animals are. And if we're going to look at and weigh intelligence, we're going to have to go and look at the brain of a whale and the brain of a dolphin. And then your little brain and go, see, not yet. So that frees us. Because most people who want to believe they're so intellectual believe that they are better thinkers than other people, which makes them feel they are superior and are qualified to do more because they can be mental. 99% of the suffering on this planet comes from our mental abilities.
Absolutely.
So we have to move off of this misnomer that I am a thinker. And the way that I do that, the way that we teach that is I am is. I think denies I am.
Wow, that's profound.
The I am is the inner divine. We have an ego that evolved through the navel chakra that we really got when we were turning about 9 years old. We were taught to say I am. It's an ego sentence. It's to pretend I am now brown. I am. We are not I am. We're the human experience of the I am. Therefore, because as a traumatized child, I recognize my other 7 selves. It's a we here. We are. If I say I, it's the ego talking. Because my I am has no reason to say anything. She lets me be that expression. When I lose saying I am, I'm surrendering for the ego.
You know, something, while speaking with you, this was going on my mind. If, for example, look at it from a different perspective, I am, if we are able to tap into a higher consciousness and we are able to sink in that realm and understand that we are one. And then if we say, I am, that would, don't you think that would come from a very different perspective? It wouldn't be from the ego, but it comes from the understanding that I am one with everybody, whether it's the sentient or the insentient beings. So therefore, I am, minus the ego, completely. I mean, this is just, I thought I'll throw this to you. Wouldn't you feel that a different perception like that? Would that make sense?
Yes. The difference is you wouldn't have to say it out loud.
Yes, it's an inner thing. You would know it.
And that knowing radiates.
Yes.
The knowing radiates. So there would not be, it would be the ego that would need to say it.
True. Otherwise, we would be in the same tribe who have the same synchronicity. Everybody would be like, just looking at each other, you would know that, okay, everybody is in that zone.
But when you're there, when you look at everybody, you know they are you.
True.
And that's why you wouldn't have to say it.
The interconnectedness.
And that's why they would feel you as themselves, because the radiance of it is what connects.
Yes.
So what happens is when a group is feeling, and let's say they're in a circle, and as they look around the circle, they see, as they would say in the Native American tradition, another one of myself. That's the Native American term for saying the same thing.
Right.
And so what happens when you're in that state, you can look a leaf, a ray of light, all of it is another one of myself.
True.
And
True.
there are no words for that.
So true. So true.
There are no words. It's just an experience.
Absolutely.
And
It's
it's
truly
an
felt.
experience that you go for. You want to do it again.
Yes.
And then you want to do it again and again. So that's literally dangling the chocolate.
True. True.
And that's why we still present opportunities for inner work, for meditating, for having inner dialogue, because the more you spend time here and appreciating all of you and your inner divine, you're dangling the chocolate.
So true. And it's like an elastic rubber band. You keep stretching it, you come back. Then again you keep stretching it, you increase that divinity, the so-called, that's just using the word, but you know what I'm saying, it's you increase that level of consciousness where you are in sync, and you come back because you are in this world, and then again you keep at it. So that's how you magnify your own self to come to that level.
It's like sex.
True, the depth of it.
And I genuinely believe that's why these bodies are designed to have orgasms the way that they do.
To feel it,
Nothing
yeah.
takes you out of the body like an orgasm and allows you to feel that connection to the all that is. That is the real purpose of orgasm. And just because guys look like they jerk off, they're not all having an orgasm. They would not be abusive if they'd had a real orgasm. Because there isn't any. Birthing babies and having orgasms are the most divine experiences you can have on this planet.
It's if I may say it in these words, it's actually you forget yourself at that point of time.
There's no self. There is no self.
Nothing.
You are one.
You are
one.
It
is
exactly. It's beautiful. Seriously. I hope people can relate to it and understand what it really feels to be in that zone for a max period of time rather than just being there, for that short duration. Then they'll be enlightened to, okay, I need to work on myself, I need to connect to my inner self, I need to be in sync.
Yes.
Wow, this is thrilling, and thank you so much. Seriously, we have had an amazing conversation, but I just have one more question to ask you.
Oh, I'm good.
And thank you so much.
I actually canceled something so that I can sit with you as long as you need.
That's a heartfelt gratitude to you. So the last question, this session of ours would be,
okay,
why are there mass awakenings happening in 2020? How long will it take for the world to come together in unison? This is again a very hypothetical kind of abstract question, but from your perspective, like, why are these things happening now? We have dealt with this topic a little bit in our earlier answers, but still, if you can throw some more light.
All right, I can always expand.
Yes.
What we haven't discussed, which can be approached, added to this, is we're not looking at how connected we are within, say, the constellations that surround our planet. That brings in the zodiac. It brings in the astrology. And back in the 70s, when I first got into astrology as a hippie, most of what we were looking at back then was what we were expecting was going to be that massive change that was going to happen in 2012. Okay? That's where we got started. And we recognized that Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto were going to be in Capricorn, and everything was going to have to change, all institutions, and so we've been preparing for this for decades. Okay? That's most of what's happening, because what we forget is we're on a clock, if you will, and it's so big that we can't quite understand it. But even if we look at the yugas, that again helps us understand. So the Maya and the Hindu yuga, all of these ancient seers were helping us understand how this teeny little tiny planet, which is just a little teeny cell, is still a part of the whole. And it's going through its rhythms. Everything is in a rhythm. And so we're now at a point where 2020, astrologically speaking, is that apex where either we make it or we don't. We have this 2-year window. By 2022, either we're through this and now on the new normal, or the mother will absorb all these little human bodies and start all over again. Not a problem for her.
Wow.
Okay.
Would be like Big Bang Part 2, something like that.
Or what was like after, say, Mount Vesuvius exploded, or
Yeah,
after the
yeah.
bubonic plague, and she just purges a whole bunch of humans and starts all over again.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
this is not an ugly, hairy thing for the mother. And when we recognize these are puny little bodies, you bump it too hard and it breaks. But we can't lose sight of who we are and why we might have chosen to be here during this time. Most of us, and there's a lot of us now, this is the most a mother has ever had to have with humans, if we don't count Atlantis and pre-Lemuria and all of that, okay? But during this, our hundred thousands of years, this is a good-sized group of humans.
True.
We're all here to help in evolving deliberately. Even the animals recognize it. Otherwise, we would not have the kinds of animals that are allowing us to call them pets, that are allowing us to ride on them. I mean, they're here to be a part of it too. And people, a lot of my clients even admit their animals are getting smarter.
I agree to this.
Dogs can
I
do
agree.
or wouldn't do.
Yes.
But now the animals are participating more. So we're all evolving. So one of the things that we want to not do is keep throwing our expectations out there as if we don't hit this mark, we're not there. Because the mother really doesn't do it that way. All right. It's about timing.
It's a cycle.
Yes. All the sacred texts say that. There's a time for everything. So right now, if we begin honoring ourselves, honoring more. See, when I first started bitching at people, it was because what's with the selfie thing? All of a sudden we have smartphones and everybody has to be taking selfies.
Selfie.
Because they're needing to focus in, and it's the egos are feeling threatened and knowing it's time for us to expand again. So all of these selfies are to remind us you're the only one on the planet. There is no one else. Everything and everybody outside of you is a reflection of you.
True.
Everybody is not here. It's just you.
True.
If everyone, imagine that. Abhishek, if everyone would acknowledge that everything out there is a reflection and they're creating a reality, they can now start taking responsibility. We'd now be Krishna talking to Arjuna about, come on and man up. Just man up.
True.
That's where we are. And that's how we get to somewhere else. I mean, in America, the joke is, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there? Well, that's so American. We teach our children that this moment doesn't count. We're going to the zoo. It'll take 2 hours to get there. So the kid for 2 hours, are we there yet? Are we there? Instead of, oh, look at that. Oh, look at
exactly. Wow. Enjoy the process while you go in those 2 hours.
And that's what's going on. So my response to your question is, we don't need to have that question. Right now, be fully here right now. And most people start looking around. And I have to say, when I say be fully here, I mean, what are you feeling right now? And that's not something.
Joy.
Most people don't go there. When you say be here now, they don't drop back into their bodies to see where they are. They start looking around to see what's out here. That's why we don't have to do that. Now, here's the first week, third day at Oneness University, August 2005. They were giving us some of the spiritual laws, rules, whatever, okay? I'll never forget this one. Human brain capable of understanding who, what, when, where, how.
Okay.
Until you are completely in sync with your inner divine, you do not have access to why. dynamite. Boom.
Wow.
And I mean, here's what happened for me. I said, could you repeat that? And so the doctor repeated it. And I'm sitting there going, do you know that I've spent my entire life since I was 9 years old trying to understand every single why I ran across?
Why?
Source of suffering.
So true.
The mere fact that we understand we're connected to everything. Where can we possibly think we're going to get the answer to why? That began eons ago, and it's still just moving and moving. Do you know how it frees your brain up if you let go of why?
Yeah.
So I make sure to teach kids, don't worry about why. Give your attention to who, what, when, where, how, because all of that's in this right now moment.
That's beautiful. That's really profound. It's so simple, but if you actually think about it, the whys just messes up your entire system. The circuitry goes for a toss. It's like the battery conks out, the car doesn't start. That's what happens. It's a brain freeze.
I'm telling you, I know. It changed my life. It changed everything. I mean, that was the beginning of finding inner peace, was giving up why.
And one more thing that comes to my mind is, if we actually are being ourself from the higher perspective, if we are in sync with the inner, you automatically are in that state. You are in a state of bliss. You're in a state of joy. You're in a state of happiness, which itself is a blessing. And with that, you keep moving ahead. Automatically, the path will keep opening up. Automatically, you keep moving forward. It is, I mean, I just hope, through many of us, like our tribe, you and me, and many more of us, we like the same tribe, because we want people to understand this in order to relieve them from the suffering that's going on in their head because of this big why. Why don't you just feel yourself? What do you feel when you think about something? What do you feel by doing something? If that is clear, if you feel that joy, that happiness, that love, there's nothing else to feel. Just go ahead. This, if people are able to understand, the world will be so different. And the beauty of it is, I feel really thankful for this entire thing which has happened to all of us globally in the last 9 months, the COVID. People have actually been thinking on those lines. Even, it's like something has been thrown, like a small flower has been thrown, and they can see the flower somewhere. They still need to see, it's a flower, is it a stone? So that process has started, which is the beauty of this entire field. The paradigm shift, if we may call it, for people to awaken. I mean, when you actually talk about awakening, people start thinking, oh, we have to go to the Himalayas, you have to go to this and that and just stay there and meditate. No, you have to feel yourself from being wherever you are. Do the worldly deeds, but be with your own self. That's when life would be like, you would actually feel you're flying.
Yes.
I've had those moments where I feel I'm flying, and I just, like, for a moment, I have to, like, just pause. Like, okay, what's happening? Why am I feeling this way? It's you're in so much of sync with your own self, which is beautiful.
Yes. One of the things that's interesting about the way humans learn, they learn by watching.
Yes.
That's the main way they learn. What we do in schools is absurd, but they learn by watching. So when they have an opportunity to see someone over and over that is in bliss, they begin to emulate. The children first, because it's easy peasy. They can feel it. But it takes
You're like a sponge.
Yes. The older adults, they're suspicious because they've already been hardened. Right. But again, when you come out radiant, they can feel it. And if you are radiant, even in adverse situations, now people are beginning to see that it can happen. we cannot forget. It is not easy to understand what we're talking about.
Mm.
Their experiences of suffering are global. It's a
True.
collective experience of trauma. Most
It
people
is.
believe that life is hard, that life is
Mm.
harsh, that life is cruel. They've
Mm.
lived through that. So when we say, why can't people just believe that? Why can't they just let go of? Because it's in them. They haven't seen someone who is living what we're saying. In their mind, that would be Jesus, and they killed him. So people don't go rushing to be like Jesus. They don't
Exactly.
have Lord Krishna, who is a leader and comes back and teaches, and they don't have. That's why I bring that. And I need you to understand that everybody is not always ecstatic when I show up dressed as a Hindu, okay? Because,
It's their loss. It's their loss.
well, and they're stuck with me once I'm there, you know? But the point is they have to see it. When
Yeah.
I say to people, gratitude breeds bliss, they don't
Yes.
quite get what I mean by that because they're living in their suffering. And
Mm.
I'm saying be grateful for your suffering so that you can then see it has a gift in there. You've been too busy in the pain. Once they can see it,
Mm.
understanding for humans is not, they believe it's intellectual. I mean,
Oh,
it's
totally.
not. Understanding is emotional. And
True.
they have to have an opportunity to experience that before
True.
they can understand.
True.
So
True.
it's just an awakening is different for different people. I mean, I know people that are awakened from where they were before, but are they awake compared to Alma Bhagavan? No.
Mm. Mm.
So we don't ever want that word to start getting hierarchicalized either, because that's the
Right.
normal way that we do things. We act like if someone's not even striving to be awakened, we don't have time for them. And that's not
Mm.
appropriate either.
That's not. Yeah. That's not.
But
It's
you
like
know
it's
how
like
that happens.
it as simple as what I think of it and feel of it is that if I have something which I can give out to the people, I want to hold their hands, make them realize that, buddy, it's all right wherever you are. If I can do it, so can you. It's just a process. Don't be hard on yourself and hold hands and move together. That's how it should be.
It's
In the
easier,
most,
um, and we can be most respectful and honoring of wherever anyone is if we wait until we're
yes,
asked. When we're asked, that means they're open.
yes,
Folks who are not open, we don't have time. We're
true,
looking and waiting and make ourselves available for those who
true.
are looking,
Who are seeking? Yeah,
seeking, looking, seeking.
yes, yes, yes,
But basically, we want to recognize, and I've had this happen lots of times, where someone will say, nope, I'm not interested. No problem.
mm,
We have to honor that because the mother does it. We cannot forget, no matter what it looks like, if they are
mm,
over 10 or 11, they're creating their own reality. We can walk up and say, did you know you're creating your own reality? And if they go, no, can you help me change
mm,
it? Now I have an open heart. But if
yes,
they say yes and it's mine, then I'm like, good, I just wondering if you knew. And I can
true,
back off because I
true,
want to
true.
honor. You have the right to create as much suffering as you want. Because, and this is what I learned from the mother. If you let them create a whole bunch of suffering, I mean, really, really deep suffering, they're going to come looking for change.
For sure.
That's the
That's
whole
what happened right now.
That's the whole point. The
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
purpose, there's only one purpose for pain, to get your attention. It's the only purpose pain
yes,
has. And once it has your
yes,
attention, you're supposed to now take care of it. But most people just go get a pill and ignore the pain. Let's just ignore
exactly,
the pain
exactly,
rather than
exactly.
acknowledge the pain is giving you an opportunity to fix something here. This is a part of the reality that you're creating.
So true. It's like giving yourself that time, that healing energy, that love, that self time, so that you heal from it naturally, rather than just popping up a pill. Oh, I have a pill, just pop it up. I'll be fine in 2 days. But they don't realize that they're pushing that pain under the
Yeah.
carpet,
Yes.
and it's
Yeah.
going to erupt someday, and they'll be like, "Holy shit, what happened?"
Exactly. Exactly. But we have to give them the right to do it that way.
Absolutely, they'll learn, they'll realize, and it'll
Or
be much more stronger for them to live it.
That's the possibility. But I have lots of Americans who prefer to stay in their pain.
Mm.
They do. Look around you.
Mm.
Let's not
Yeah.
pretend that everybody is trying to become awakened. Some people are insulted by the term itself.
Oh, yes. I agree with you. I agree with you. Wow. Thank you so much, Rainbow. It's been a pleasure to have you on our channel. You are invincible. It's been thrilling. I hope the viewers they have taken each and every iota of knowledge that has been thrown at us today. I am excited. I feel blissful, to be honest. I feel so joyful to be here on this platform, exchanging ideas, understanding, experiencing what you have experienced, and gaining from that. And something that I really loved from your mission that you have, I would like to read it. So, friends, one thing, if you want to get in touch with Rainbow, you can get in touch with her on our website, which is Rainbow Moon. It's right here in the Tinker, Rainbow Moon PhD.guru. And I'm going to read something for you from that. My mission is to open you to being your postmodern self, an open human system of consciousness dependent on context, always in the state of becoming, actively integrating new information and exchanging that information with a changing environment. Rainbow further says, but creating a collective of postmodern awareness of the innate beauty of humanity requires the transcendence of each individual, one person at a time. It's rather like the transmission of the flu
Yeah.
from one person to the other person. Love, peace, beauty are contagious, as
Yes.
well as fear, anger, animosity. And everything is a fractal or capable
Yeah.
of fractalization.
Yes.
We can create self sustaining peace on earth by shifting from a linear, limited thinking to non linear, unlimited, fractal awareness.
Yes.
This is beautiful. I mean, I when I read this, I was blown the way in which you have shared. It is so simple. It's like you
Yeah.
have a choice:
Yeah.
love, peace, harmony, or envy, animosity, hatred. You choose. And
Yeah.
there's a constant fight within our own self. What, how, where. And that's when this entire consciousness, that's where the idea of being multidimensional comes into the picture,
Mhm.
where you know that you have it in you to be in a higher state of life, in a higher realm. And hence, so much good can happen. But I feel honored and privileged to be here and having this conversation with you. Thank you so much, Rainbow, for giving us your time, your precious time. It has been phenomenal. And you are an enigma for sure. I will repeat that. You are an enigma. And the seven odd 0 years that you have lived, you do not have the energy of that. You have an energy of a 10-year-old with the higher consciousness.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for even inviting me and allowing me the opportunity to give a little bit of what I call my multidimensional self-care system.
Right.
So thank you so much. I've enjoyed this. You know I've
Thank
enjoyed
you
this.
so
I'm in
much.
India for
Yes,
the afternoon. I'm having a grand time. Thank you.
yes,
Thank
yes.
you to
Thank you
all.
so
And if anyone, I can offer you a free handout that just sort of outlines the wisdom keys that I offer and that I stand
Yes.
on. If you just go to my website, go to the last page and fill in the form and say, please send me a copy of your wisdom keys. I'll happily do that. Okay?
So, viewers, you heard that from the horse's mouth. Please do get in touch with her if you want to change your life. You want to change the linear into a non-linear for your own benefit. So, thank you
That,
so much, Rainbow.
yeah.
Yes,
Thank
please.
you. Thank you.
No,
Thank
no,
you.
please. You want to say something.
Say what?
I thought you wanted to say something again.
Oh, no, no, no. I was just all excited because you're talking about my little kid and my 73-year-old self, and
Absolutely.
we're all one. And we want to be able to offer to people an opportunity to live in their own bliss. So
Yes.
offering through India is just over the moon for us. And that way, I can let people know I can do sessions with you, one-on-one sessions. We'll just do Zoom sessions. So
Absolutely.
it's not that I just do people here in the United States. And I want an excuse to come back to India.
Oh,
So
yes, it'll be fantastic. It'll be great when the international flights start, when it is much more stabilized in terms of the
yes,
scenario. It'll be lovely to have you back here.
looking
Thank you
forward
so
to it.
much.
Thank
Please
you.
take good care of yourself, Rainbow. It was phenomenal. And thank you so much, viewers, for joining us. And we'll see you very soon. Tune in to You Are
Thank,
Invincible for the updates. Thank you. Take care, Rainbow.
thank you. Thank you.
Bye bye.